Hello, I'm Panos Kotzathanasis, and this is Bad Accent Video Reviews. Today we're going to talk about the second season of Jobless Reincarnation by Hiroki Hirano and Studio Bind. Since season 1 premiered to plenty of praise and great reviews, fans have been waiting for Jobless Reincarnation to return for almost 2 years. And I dare say that the eagerness was met with success, but to a point. Let me start from the beginning, though, and talk a bit about the story. Rudeus is still struggling to handle Eris's loss, while still growing and trying to figure out his next move regarding Zenith. Part 1 of the season illustrates Rudy's effort to connect with a new party while fumbling romances and relationships until he eventually enrolls at Ranoa University of Magic. By part 2, Rudy's love life has drastically improved, but the teleportation disaster and Zenith's whereabouts remain mysteries, leading him to go on a journey with his father's adventuring party to Begorit to find her. This last aspect is essentially the part 3, which moves on a completely different level, more towards the first season. To begin, the 3 parts differ significantly. Although the intense but also meaningful on occasion fan service of the first part is missing, the fact that sex becomes a point of focus remains one of the most appealing aspects of the series, in a rather unusual approach for an anime. The way it is connected with the psychology of Rudeus and the rest of the characters that appear throughout the first part is quite intriguing, while introducing a very interesting character, Soldat, who forces Rudeus to get out of his cell with force initially, before he becomes something of a mentor. The way the theme of impotence is handled is also interesting in another unique element here. The second arc, however, as soon as Rudeus joins the School of Magic, turns it into a generic school and eventually family drama, with essentially no action, and the only really interesting comment being the one about how teenagers can deal with depression and avoid becoming hikikomori, as is the situation in Japan and has been for quite some time. Granted, this arc progresses the story into paths no one would have guessed, with Rudeus maturing to a level a 17-year-old will probably never will, but the fact remains that the whole thing is somewhat dull, particularly when compared with the first season, with very few exceptions, and one of them probably being the character of Felina Liz, who starts as a prostitute before she becomes something completely different in a transformation that can also be perceived as a kind of humor, as a revelation in the second part of the second part takes place. The last part is where essentially all the action takes place, with the dungeon crawling being impressive to watch, and particularly the final fight, which is the most memorable in the whole season, at least in terms of animation. Both Yoshiko Saito and Sanae Shimada's character design and the animation by Studio Bind find their apogee here, in a series of imposing scenes, while the way the whole thing becomes rather dramatic is also excellent. The way the series approaches the harem trope is also interesting, although probably many will find it offensive, but in general it suits the overall aesthetics of the series. Another interesting aspect that actually appears throughout the series is how the real persona of Rudeus in the real Japan interacts and affects the way Rudeus is in the fantasy world. But I also felt that it was better explored in the first season than it is here. Here it's mostly there to progress the story in various ways than an organic aspect of the narrative. And while the first and the second parts follow the excellent direction of the first season, the second, which is actually the longest one, ends up being dull. I have to say that I got bored after 4 or 5 episodes in the university arc. As such, season 2 is good, considering the quality of the first and the third arc, but it's definitely not as good as the first, while the element of surprise that was there in the first season is also not here, which is an issue that a number of titles with great first season face. However, by the end of the title, we get an announcement about a third season, and let's see what happens there. So this was once again for today the Bad Accent Reviews. Thank you for being here, and if you like this video, please like and subscribe, and hope to see you soon again. Have a nice day.